Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Saturday, the 30th of November 2019. And we're producing two videos today. This one questioning where on the political spectrum we at Illuminati Silver sits. And the second, which will be published in a few hours' time, is our normal weekly update of gold and silver and economic data. So coming back to this video, often whenever we produce a political piece, podcast or article, many of those who comment seem to wonder from which side of the political spectrum we actually come from. This is particularly the case when we call out from time to time President Trump for any misdeeds or what may be perceived to be misdeeds, not necessarily misdeeds, but perceived to be, and unsavory Twitter or public comments. Now, we've been accused by some of being Clinton lovers or the deep state working against a populist president, and sometimes even communists lying in wait for the revolution to occur. Now, when we see these comments, apart from those obviously given by the trolls and what we perceive to be the never Trumpers and the always Trumpers, because of course they are to some degree biased, we ask ourselves whether we're giving the right impression or not, or whether we should even be giving any political expression at all. Well, the reality is, and we've delved into this issue in some depth, the reality is, whether it be controversially Greg, Brother Anthony, Collectible Ivan or myself, we are perhaps best described or defined as capitalists with a social conscience. Now, we're the first to admit that without some form of capitalist economy, and we can all argue the degrees, there is little incentive for growth or economic progress. Without capitalism, some of the world's greatest inventions will never have been created. Without capitalism, we would all likely now be foraging for the basic elements of daily survival. Now, equally though, we are mindful of the fact that pure capitalism can lead to the doctrine of kill or be killed. Let the weak wither and die, so the strong may rise up and conquer. If you cannot look after yourself, you're not worth looking after. And other similar epithets. Now, we believe that free enterprise should have many of the shackles imposed upon it removed. And in fairness to the Trump administration, they've done quite a bit of this. There's nothing worse for a small entrepreneurial business to be constantly tied down in red tape, where the owners are spending 50% of their time completing paperwork rather than running the business they've set up to improve theirs and others' economic fortunes. Equally, though, we also appreciate that businesses, and particularly larger businesses, should not be able to pollute our planet with impunity, releasing toxins into the atmosphere or waters. We also believe that all businesses should have to pay their fair share of taxation, with around, and we can argue the precise percentages, but with around 20% of profits being taxed, being the sort of figure that is reasonable. Which is why we balk at some of the world's largest companies, such as Amazon, just to pick one example, but there are many others, being able to avoid paying taxes of any sort in a large number of countries in which they operate and extract considerable profits. That said, we also do not wish to see such companies being taxed so heavily that the profit motive or incentive is reduced to such an extent that progress is either hampered or even completely forgone. And we can all debate whether, if a company places a large proportion of their profits into research and development, for example, whether that should be taxed or not. We're quite open-minded about that. We also do not want our governments, though, to meddle too much in our daily lives either, and to spend the dollars, pounds, euros, or whatever currencies they receive on vanity projects or on worthless and harmful initiatives. It is often the better practice for the people to keep the majority of their hard-earned wealth and income and spend it according to their own daily requirements, rather than governments dictate where that money should be spent. Now, that said, there is still a need for government, for defence, for certain but not overwhelming social programs which act as a safety net and not a safety blanket in which those who do not wish to work can wrap themselves in perpetuity. Now, we believe in sound money, and although borrowing is part of today's world culture and now a necessity, unfortunately, it should not be overextended, placing an impossible burden on our children and grandchildren in repaying even the interest back, let alone the original principal. We would like to see our politicians and public servants actually serve the people they represent and not cater for their own selfish needs and wealth creation. Public office should enable one to pay the bills, of course, but not become so fantastically wealthy that it becomes a means to an end, rather than the privilege of serving one's fellow man or woman. We want our financial institutions to make a profit, yes, but not at the expense of people's misery and propping up those who are already amazingly wealthy. Of course, a failed business or investment will lead to unhappiness and financial consequences, and that is the risk the owner or investor takes. But equally, people's pensions and investments should not be played with via extremely high risk and often quite shady derivatives created for the sole purpose of making certain institutions enormous profits at the expense of the performance of those investments. Now, the list goes on and on. Yes, what we would like to see and hopefully try to work towards may indeed be an impossible goal. Human nature, possessing the attributes of greed, selfishness, ego, and envy, may preclude many of the desires we have ever being implemented. But we still believe that we all have to have a goal or some purpose in life beyond daily survival and recreation. Otherwise, what is the purpose of our very being? So, when we call out Trump or a member of his administration, we don't do so because we're of a different political persuasion. We would do the same even if Clinton had won the election, because she then will have been president and would be the decision maker in how the country is run. In her present capacity, she has almost zero influence, certainly in real terms, save her opinion, of which some may take notice and others not. But she does not have her hands on the levers of power, which the Trump administration does have currently, as the Boris Johnson administration has on the UK, and Macron has in France, and Merkel in Germany, Putin in Russia, Xi in China. You get our drift. Our interest in politics is to some extent less on ideology, although it does exist, but more on how the decisions affect the security and economic development of the nation, how it creates as unified a nation as possible, with all of its peoples aiming towards a common goal, so that their children may benefit from the legacy that we all pass on to them. So coming back to the question of this video, who are we from a political perspective, and where on the political spectrum do we sit? All we can suggest is the term mentioned at the start of this podcast. We are capitalists with a social conscience, well aware that without having the means to ensure that you and your family are okay to begin with, or we and our families are okay to begin with, it's extremely difficult to possess and use any resources to help those who are not okay. Thank you for listening. Please by all means comment whether you agree or disagree. If you haven't already done so, it would be great if you would subscribe to this channel and press the bell sign so that you're notified of future videos as and when they're produced. And as already mentioned at the start, our weekly gold and silver update will be published in a few hours' time. Now, before we go, we also wish to remind you of our live question and answer session this evening at 2100 hours GMT on our Discord channel, where I, Bowman, and Aurelius will be available to answer your questions. We will also show you our own new trading platform on Discord, which will allow all of our Discord members to trade their gold, silver, and precious metals with one another completely free of charge. So, if you are already a Discord member, then please log on tonight, go over to the left-hand menu, and click on the heading entitled Shoot the Breeze. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer: Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management, and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.